Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for allowing us to come together once again. We're thankful for Judy and her presentation. Help us to absorb whatever is needed that we may improve our marriages or communication with our co-workers, or communication with our children, with our friends and church members. Bless us this day. Amen. Now, I clicked on something and I'm not so sure which one should I click on when it's on that, Marcel?
It says it's live now. It's you're good.
Recording? It's good? It's good?
Yes, it says live.
Yeah, but I can't see the screen now where.
Oh.
It says live, but I can't. Yeah, now. Yeah. I can watch it on YouTube. I'm watching. Yeah, but I'm not able to watch it. Should I click on your channel or just go back?
No, don't go back. Don't go back. If you go back, it's not going to record.
Okay. I guess I'll just have to do it on YouTube, but I'm going to be delayed.
Carlo, can you mute yourself, please, Carlo?
Okay. The only thing I'm gonna end up listening to it on YouTube, so I won't be able to control who's coming in.
Oh, you can't see anything at all?
I'll take care of it.
Okay, well, I'm watching it on YouTube right now.
Yeah,
but
Leonard, I'll take care of the admissions.
I can see everything, but I can't control it. Yeah. Okay, thank you. All right, let me introduce Judy. This is my wife, Judith McCalla. She's a clinical psychologist. She's born in Anguilla and is also grew up in the Virgin Islands. She when she graduated, she was offered a scholarship to Princeton. She turned it down to go to Andrews because God had something better in store for her there. That's where she met me. Now, eventually we got married and she attended University of Miami where she did her PhD in clinical psychology. She did research for a number of years in stress, and then the last few years she spent working in the clinic, training the graduate students, the PhD students in I guess the different forms of different approaches to managing patients. And then the last few years, I think about 5 years, she left UM and went into private practice. So I'm turning everything over to you now, Judy. Go ahead and you can get started.
Good afternoon, everyone. I have to put a little disclaimer on here. My husband's numbers are a little shaky, but it's okay. I actually had a completely different presentation I was going to give, and this one I decided on, half an hour ago, for Kenny's sake. So Kenny, this is for you. So we're going to talk about improving communication within the family. That was his request. And I want to say right off that what I'm going to share with you today is a lot of the things that I used to teach my students. And a lot of it is things that I actually work with my patients on a day-to-day basis. So it's very practical things that you could use to just improve your communication skills within your family and friends, etc. Okay. Well, so this now is not letting me. Oh, here we go. Advancing the slide. So why should we focus on communication? Okay. Good communication skills is vital. It's vital in every family relationship and every personal relationship. If you're having a successful relationship, you have good communication. And when we as individuals feel heard, it decreases our negative emotions. It makes us more open to resolving conflicts with others. It increases the trust and the caring among family members. So communication is a good thing. So another thing that we want to focus on in terms of why we should improve family communication, it really leads to strong and positive family relations. If you think about it, in your family, if you have good communication, you as a family member will feel secure, will feel accepted and loved, even if you're not the best, even if you have some shortcomings. And so we help families to resolve conflicts, and we want to respect differences of opinion. And that is something that is not always stressed in families. It's often my way or the highway in some situations. We also want to teach our family members how to resolve problems in a respectful way. This really is setting a good example for your children, to teach them the skills that they need so that they can have healthy relationships with their families. And so the legacy can go on from generation to generation. So I want to start off by talking about some bad communication. And these are 5 examples of bad communication. The first one is truth blame. This is when you insist that you are right, the other person is wrong, or the problem is all the other person's fault. You are not to blame at all. That's truth blame. And second one is denial. This is when you insist that you are not angry or you're not upset in some way when you really are, And so it's that denial of your true emotional state. Then we have diversion. Instead of dealing with how you feel or the present problem in the here and now, you just bring up all the things from the past, everything the person has done, all the injustices this person has done to you, and you bring those things up and muddy the waters with regard to the problem you're dealing with today. That's called diversion. And then counterattack. This is an interesting one because when somebody criticizes you, you're in the wrong. You just respond to their criticism by criticizing them. Oh yeah, you're not so perfect yourself. Look, you did this and you did this and you did that, So you deflect really from what they're telling you by attacking them instead. That's called counterattack. And then the final one, that's an example of bad communication, is demandingness. You will tell someone else that they should treat you better, but you don't tell them what that means. What's that supposed to look like? If you don't tell somebody what you expect, how do you expect them to give you what you want? So those are 5 ways that people communicate that lead to issues in communication. These are bad communication styles. And this comes from the Feeling Good Handbook. And it's from the 80s, let me tell you, and it's still relevant today. Okay. So now there's some other things that get in the way of good communication. And this is when you assume you know what somebody else is thinking, or that they should know what you're thinking. So when you're thinking this way, it's called mind reading. When you think you know what somebody else is thinking about you, and often it tends to be negative, that's called mind reading, and that creates a problem. And then when you're focusing on your response to them instead of listening to them, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that, that's also something that gets in the way of your communication. Or assuming that you know what is right for other people and trying to convince them of this. I know what you should study. I know what you should do. And the person's like, but I don't like this. I don't want to be a nurse. I think you should be a nurse because nurses are a field that you should do. That kind of thinking can get in the way of good communication. So we know that the Bible has a lot of support for strong family relationships. And you see here in Ephesians 6:4, fathers, do not provoke your children to wrath, but bring them up in the training and admonition of the Lord. Exodus 20:12, about honoring your father and your mother so that you may live long in the land that the Lord is giving you. We also know in Ephesians 5:31 that a man should leave his mother and father and be united to his wife, and they become one flesh. My husband loves to talk about this being one flesh. That's like probably his favorite thing. He's like, we are one, we are one. And then we have Ephesians 5:25. Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. And then the last one, Ephesians 5:8 and 9, that we should all live in harmony with one another. Be sympathetic, live as brothers, be compassionate, be humble. Don't repay evil with evil or insult with insult. So these are just a few verses that really support the idea that God is really in favor of our families having very strong relationships. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you this story. This is a vignette of a husband and wife. The husband, Michael, the wife's name is Eve. And I want you to answer this question at the end. What went wrong? And secondly, what could have been done differently? Okay? So Michael had a hard day at work and was looking forward to spending some quiet time at home relaxing. When he got home, he went to the kitchen where his wife Eve, a school teacher, was cooking dinner and asked, "When will dinner be ready? I'm starved." "It will be about half an hour since I was late getting home from school," Eve replied. Michael became angry. He shouted, "You should have been home over an hour ago. I don't ask for much from you. All I ask is that you have my dinner ready when I get home, and you can't even do that." "You didn't even ask what happened before you started yelling at me," Eve shouted back. "You never help out around here anyway, and then you come home demanding your dinner. You always take out your frustration from work out on me. Why don't you get your own dinner? I've had it up to here with you." Okay, so here we had a communication problem. Can somebody tell me what went wrong?
The man was hungry.
Okay, so we're dealing with a hangry situation.
That
Okay.
can't be something wrong. That's something natural. There's a difference.
Ah, okay.
So I think what's wrong here is expectations.
Expectations went wrong. Okay, so we see, if we look at the details, we see some other stuff happening. But anyway, somebody else had something to say. Go ahead.
Well, I think communication did take place.
Okay.
The man communicated his expectations or his needs
Uh-huh.
without taking into consideration the mitigating circumstances, even though the wife communicated that she was late in getting home, hence why dinner was late.
Mm-hmm.
But he chose to ignore that.
He chose to ignore that and just focus on his needs.
Well, let me say here too that something is not right there too, because the fact it seemed to me as if they're both professionals. They both have regular jobs, as it were.
Yes.
And the whole idea that you came home, she was at work too. And your first thing is to say, "Why is my dinner not ready?" You could have volunteered to help to make it get ready faster.
Yes. I really like you and what you just said there. That's a key feature too. Yes. He could have said something different. Okay, somebody else had a comment.
Yeah, I have a comment there in her answer.
Okay.
She used two words there that I have a problem with.
Mm-hmm.
You never and you always.
Yes. We call that overgeneralization.
Here, Madam Speaker.
Yeah. When you take one situation and you paint a broad picture with that. Uh-huh.
And then to top it off, having said that, she then now put the onus back on him. Why don't you get your own dinner?
Yes.
So not only is she blaming him for what has been apparently a seething issue that she has had, but she's now, shall we say, abdicating her responsibility by now pushing the responsibility on him. You're hungry, you will get your own food. So she's upping the ante, and the fire is going to start.
Look at what she says right after. She's had it up to here with him. So she's full. She's had enough.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to excuse him at all.
Okay.
So he walks in with a demand. You know, he did not show any kind of understanding about what she's doing. It's like, you have a job to do here, and
didn't do it.
Yes, you have a job to do. Who gave her that job to do? Who makes it her responsibility to have a full job outside of home and then come home and have to do this for him? Have to do it. And then he walks in and he doesn't show any appreciation for the fact that she's even doing it.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
now he's demanding, okay, why are you not fulfilling your responsibility?
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, so what should have been done differently?
Can you
I
hear me?
heard one
Judy?
person say before, he said, why didn't he help?
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I can hear you, Paul.
Yeah. First thing I think if I came home and I see my wife, I'm gonna ask her, no matter how bad things are, I'm gonna ask her how was her day, stuff like that, before I even put a demands on her, you know.
Yes.
So that would probably make communication a little bit more better for both.
Right. I mean, you would think that, right? Maybe not everybody's as considerate as you, Paul. Okay. So let's see what happens now in every situation, every argument. There's a pivot point. There's a point where the conversation goes sideways. So let's look at this. We know what went wrong. We know what could have been done differently. We just talked about that. Now look at this. Look at the first paragraph. She says, it will be about half an hour since I was late getting home from school. Then Michael's asked, what happened? There was an accident at school and one of my students was injured, but she will be all right, Eve answered. I'm glad to hear it, Michael said. Listen, I've had a very hard day at work today and I'm feeling cranky and hungry. Is there anything I can do to help out so we can eat sooner? I really need to relax and unwind. Look at how this is such a difference from the previous situation. 2 words. What happened? Showing concern for the other person, trying to get the details instead of just attacking. Any comments?
Well, this demonstrates emotional intelligence being displayed, at least by Michael, which helps now to diffuse the situation and cause the communication to be more adult and more egalitarian instead of blaming.
Yeah, he didn't ask, you know, how her day was or anything like that. He still didn't do that. He's not the perfect husband, but he expressed interest in what happened, what caused the delay, because it seems like it is her role in this scenario to prepare the dinner. Okay, but he's willing to jump in and help so that they can eat sooner because he recognizes his own emotional state and what he needs. So he's willing now to help so that it can happen. Okay. So
I really like the part about helping, because the fact of the matter is that, you know, you're in this thing together. And if she's late with it, if you help, well, let's say more hands make work lighter, quicker, or faster.
Yes.
So I like that part of it.
Yes, I agree. I think he should always help, but that's just me.
Yeah, but in for any relationship,
yes,
helping or rendering assistance always seem to make things go better.
Right. Somebody had a hand up. I think it was Carlos.
It's all right. I won't. It's not a necessary comment.
Okay. Well, let's talk about, you know, communication consists of 3 parts. The first part is body language. And then we're going to talk about listening and speaking. So body language, what is that? Well, it is using your body, your physical behavior, your expressions, your mannerisms to communicate non-verbally. And often it happens instinctively. You're not consciously aware of your body language, but you can be. Okay. So it includes things like facial expressions, the gestures you make, your posture, your voice. And when I say your voice, I mean like your tone of voice, whether it's loud or soft, whether it's sarcastic or not. You know, those things all are part of voice. Eye contact, touch. When people start dating, people around them realize that they're dating before they even say it to others because of touch. Because people who are involved tend to touch one another more so than not, okay? And then we have invading personal space. So whether you're aware of it or not, whenever you interact with another person or with people, you are continuously giving and receiving these nonverbal communication, wordless signals. And so it's very important to be aware of what are the messages that you're sending. You know, everybody knows the positive ones, oh, hugs and kisses and smiles, etc. But the negative ones also play a role. When you're upset, that tone of voice, that gruff tone or frowns, or sometimes not touching somebody can give a lot of information away. You can say the same words. You can say the words, I am fine. And you can say it like, I'm fine. Well, if I ask you, how are you? And you say to me, I'm fine. I know two things. One, you're angry. And two, I need to stay away from you right now. So the words, I am fine, well, I told her I'm fine, means absolutely nothing. Because when there is a discrepancy between the words that you say and your body language, the person to whom you are speaking will assume that your body language is the correct one. So you need to make sure that your body language matches what you say with your voice. And this is how, you know, people get in trouble all the time. Somebody might say, oh, can you help me with this? And you go, sure. Sure means, of course I could help you. But when you said it the way you said it, it means you're bothering me. Yeah, I'll help you, but I really am doing it unwillingly. All of that is in one word, sure. Do you see? So the tone of voice that you use, a lot of times people aren't really paying attention to that. But the tone of voice, the sarcasm or whatever it is that is attached to that is so much more information that you're giving to that other person than you may not have intended to give. In fact, this is the reason why when texting came along, they had to invent emojis. Because to say the words wasn't giving enough context. And so the emojis give the context so that a person can fully appreciate the message the person is trying to give. Okay. Any questions about body language? You all are very comfortable with this, right? You know, tossing your hands and things like that. Anything that anybody needs to comment about in terms of body language? Before I run on to the next topic.
Dr.
Yes.
McCalla, can body language be misinterpreted? So your body is saying you're thinking one thing, but your body language is saying something opposite to what you may be thinking, or
yes.
I don't know.
The body language often says something opposite to what you're saying, but not necessarily. It's less likely for it to be opposite of what you're thinking. You know, now here's one example. Let's say you're a very shy person and you're sitting, you know, maybe up by yourself with your arms folded and stuff like that. And people might say, well, she seems kind of like disinterested. That person may not be disinterested. That person may just be protective. Do you see? So those things can be misinterpreted.
So Dr. J.
Yes.
What if my wife's body language tells me that there's something wrong?
Yes.
And I say, honey, is there something wrong? And she says to me,
no.
What? No. She said, well, if you don't know, I'm not gonna tell you.
Okay. So she said no to you, but in a way that gives you the rest of the sentence, which was, if you don't know, I'm not going to tell you. That gets into that other topic we talked about before, which is like that whole mind reading where, you know, you think that the other person, husband and wives have this problem a lot. Mind reading is so very common. You know, every husband and wife in training, dating, should take a class in this stuff because you don't know what the other person is thinking. And if somebody doesn't tell you, even if somebody's mad with you, you may not know why they are really angry. And then you come up with, oh, maybe I said something this morning. Okay. And then you go and you apologize for, well, maybe I was a little gruff this morning. And she gets even more upset because now you've gone and made up something else that wasn't what she said. Now she's mad at you for two reasons. So the body language thing is something that I think really needs more emphasis in relationships.
So,
Judy.
Dr. McCalla,
Yes.
so one of the things that I have I guess it's not an issue. Maybe you can call it an issue. When somebody folds their arm, they are the folding of the arm suggests a comfortable position. But I guess in my mind, I was taught growing up that when somebody folds their arm, they're in what they call in Jamaica considering. They're in a mode of I really don't want to communicate. I want to be left alone, but that may not necessarily be so.
True.
Because oftentimes I've seen my wife fold her arms and I'm like, is everything okay? And she's like, yeah, I'm good. But her arm being closed is just a matter of she is dealing with whatever she's dealing with on an internal level.
One other thing about arms, especially the whole arms folding business, is a lot of times people do that when they're cold.
Yes.
Because it's a way to keep more warmth in. And for some people, it is a habit. There's some people who just naturally do this all the time. If you're around that person, you know the habit. So then you wouldn't focus on the arms. You would focus on the facial expression. You would focus on the shoulders, are their shoulders kind of hunched up? If your shoulders are hunched up, you are telling the person you are in a defensive mode. You are protecting yourself. So this plus this, a person does not want to be around you. Like, get away from me, okay? They don't want you there. A person who's like this, with the arms down, could just be relaxed. So you need to know who you're talking to, but these are broad strokes,
Okay.
There are people who have habits. There's some people who never look at another person in the eye because it's their habit. It's from their culture. So then that person will never look at you because they think looking at you is disrespectful. That doesn't mean that person is not listening to you, but you have to know the culture to figure out what's really happening with that person. Yes.
Dr. Judy, I'm just curious.
Yes. Good
presentation so far. Is there a ratio between body language and the verbal? Do you know of
a number? Well, I've heard a number, but it sounds so high that I hesitate to use it. But I have to say a lot of what is communicated, maybe even the majority of what is communicated non-verbally. Because people get the gist of a conversation very quickly. And people are looking for congruence or discrepancy. So when you're, if you were to tell somebody, hi, I'm so happy to see you, and you're looking off and you're, yeah, I'm so happy to see you. That person's like, well, this person is not happy to see me. Right away, they focus on the discrepancy and they go with, which is what it's saying. Okay, Kenny, you had your hand raised.
It's the same thing with Pastor Wellington. I'd heard that 85% of communication is nonverbal. That includes body language, and 15% is verbal. So you're kind of, I don't know whether those are true numbers, but
I don't know if they're true numbers, but it's the majority.
But most of the communication is nonverbal, and we need to realize that. I was just thinking about when people try to fake themselves on a lie detector test, they're controlling their nonverbal a lot better. That's what I'm thinking.
I mean, you can learn how to do, what I would do with groups that I had with people who were not great communicators. We would practice in pairs how to talk to somebody and give the right signals. And it's not easy. It requires time and effort until it becomes effortless. But it is like training yourself to learn a different language. You don't just like, oh, today I'm going to speak Spanish. No, you have to learn it and you have to practice it. Same thing. Okay.
Sometimes it's hard to read body language, whether it's genuine or not, because there's some people will give you the best smile, but they really doesn't want you in the face, or stuff like that.
And do you know you can tell if a smile is genuine or not?
True.
You learn it from the time you were very young.
Yeah.
And it's something to do with the eyes, because when you smile genuinely, people will say this, your eyes smile. But when it's fake, your eyes are flat. They don't move. There's no emotion expressed in the eyes, and you just see you say, oh, that's a fake smile.
Yeah.
When their eyes are not smiling as the mouth, it's a fake smile. So it's interesting that we know when we're looking at something, and often we can pick up that person is not genuine. That person really is not really happy to see me. We know it's somewhere inside because we're picking up on the nonverbal, but we don't know exactly why we feel that way.
Windows to the soul.
Yes. Okay. So the next aspect is listening. And, in my old presentation, I had like pages of this, but I've condensed it to one page because I don't want you guys to be here all day with me. So here we go. Active listening. It is a way of listening to others that lets them know you are working to understand the message they're sending to you. So how do you do that? You want to make sure your body language conveys that you're listening and that you're interested in what they're saying. So that means you're looking at them. People, when they're listening to somebody and they're interested, they tend to lean forward. Not like in the person's lap, but you simply move from completely, like a 90 degree, and you move less than that 90. So you move forward. Your body moves forward. You say a lot of uh-huh. You do a lot of head nodding when you're interested in listening. And people aren't even aware that they're doing that. They just do it. So that's how your body language just conveys that. Then Carlo, I see you have your hand raised. Is this a comment you have before I move on?
Yes, it is actually.
Go ahead.
One of the things that, as an example, that people talk about body language is the positioning of the feet. When
turning
one
towards
is
the person
interested
away
towards
from
a person
yeah.
as opposed to away from.
Mm-hmm.
And also, as lawyers, we're taught when we're doing cross-examination, pay particular attention to where the eyes go.
Yes.
When they're supposed to
when they're looking away, they're formulating the lie to tell you.
Yes.
That's what they tell you.
And invariably, it's almost universal that they look away to the right. It's almost a universal action when a lie is being formulated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, it's very interesting. We have tells. Yes. Let's see. Errol, you have your hand raised as well.
Judith, given the fact that you're helping us as men to be better communicators, primarily with our wives and our families, and then by extension, our other communities. But yes. let us stay within a marriage, for example.
Okay.
The way the world now is set up, the cell phone and other forms of distractions are a constant for many wives and husbands.
Mm-hmm.
How do you politely indicate to your spouse that we're having a conversation? I really don't want you to be on your phone. I really want you to pay attention to me, without it appearing as if you are trying to dictate how this is to be. But listening is a major part. And they're listening to you, but they're on their phone. They're listening to you, but they're asking questions. They're listening to you, but they're interrupting you and giving advice on something that you simply want to be heard out in. How would you advise in that situation?
Okay, if you look at the slide that I have up right now, it says the first thing is the body language we're talking about. The second one is to reduce distractions that prevent you from focusing. So in a situation where, and we're going to talk about this a little later on, but when you're in a situation where you want to have a communication with somebody else, you say, okay, let's both put our phones away. Not let you put your phone away. Let's both put our phones away so we can focus on what we're talking about. So that way, it's not I'm dictating to you. It's like we are doing a joint activity. We're agreeing to do this so we can both hear each other better without distractions. You also want to listen to not only what the person is saying, but the emotion that they are generating. And in my original presentation that I had for you, I said one of the key aspects of a good listening is to identify the emotion that the other person is speaking or conveying to you and say it out loud to the person. You would say, well, I see that this is, this is making you feel really angry, or this makes you feel very, frustrated, or whatever it might be. Identify it. And then if you're not 100% sure, you say, is that right? Give the person a chance to say, no, that's not right. And it doesn't box you into a corner, but it really helps the communication to convey back to the person the emotions, because your emotions are your drivers. Okay. And, the other thing that it says here is when the person is finished speaking, to paraphrase what they said. One way to make somebody very angry is to parrot back what they said. If you want to make somebody angry with you, tell them word for word exactly what they said. It makes people really upset. But that's not what you're going to do. You're going to paraphrase. What is the gist of what this person is saying to you? You give them back the gist so they can understand that you hear them and you're on the same page. Okay. I see, Errol, you have your hand up.
No, I lowered it.
Okay. And Carlo, I think you had your hand.
I do.
Okay.
I just wanted to share this example that I don't know about other persons, but I'm very much addicted to screens.
Mm-hmm.
So is my father, and so are my sons. So when I walk in a room, it can be absolutely nothing that I would ordinarily have interest in. Once the TV is on, I'm drawn to it.
Right.
And I had to make the conscious decision when I realized that it was affecting communication in my marriage. If we'd go out, even if it's the NFL on and I want to watch the game, I put my back to the TV so you can
concentrate on her.
I can concentrate on what my wife wants to say.
All right. Yeah, good husband. Yes. Okay, Kenny, you raise your hand.
Just a comment about the parroting. I was just thinking about my wife when she parrots. When I ask her if she's listening to me and she parrots me, I was thinking that's a good thing. But now that you're saying she's
but
just
doesn't that irritate you?
Yeah, now I think I understand, because she's not really listening when she parrots. I guess she knows what I'm saying, but is not really into the conversation. I guess that's what you're trying to say, right?
Well, when you parrot a person back, it is often perceived as being disrespectful. But when you paraphrase, you have to think about what the person said, and now you put it in your own words and then you give it back. That shows effort and interest. And that's the key. I see there's another hand raised. I can't see who's the other person. Wilpert. Yes, Wilpert.
Yeah. Bear me out with this one.
Okay.
You and I have been not you, but you and I have been in a relationship for many years.
Okay.
I am used to listening to you intently when you talk.
Take your time, Wilbert. Take your time.
I'm used to listening to you intently when you talk. And so I am listening to you. And you are struggling to find a word. And you can't find the word. And I don't fill in the space for you. And then you get angry because I didn't fill in that space for you. Because as far as you're concerned, our communication our relationship has been at a level where I should be able to fill in your blank spaces.
Okay. Now, let me divert from the presentation for just a minute with that. Now, here's the thing. Couples have a style, a communication style in the marriage. The one thing that anybody who knows me well knows What I find attractive is intelligence. I love an intelligent man. Okay? If you're an intelligent man, you've got my attention and I want to talk to you and we can engage in conversation. And that to me is much more attractive than a good looking man who's just stupid or unintelligent, you know? So there are people who engage at that level. There are people who over the years have developed a style where maybe one is more educated or more knowledgeable than the other, and that person has taken the role of being the fill-in. Well, if you've made this role all these years and you stop doing that, it's going to create a conflict. So you can't change in midstream unless you've had a conversation about changing. And even with having the conversation, there still could be rough waters. Yes. So Wilpert, if you're used to doing something a certain way and you change, it's going to have repercussions. That's just life. Let's see, Paul and a couple other people. You guys, I might have to have part 2 because you guys are not letting me finish this conversation.
Yeah.
Go right ahead.
I'm sorry, Dr. Judy.
Yes, go ahead.
But I believe that it is impolite for me to interrupt your what you're saying and try to interpret your mind.
Yes.
I want to hear you out.
Yes.
But because you're struggling, you get upset because I'm not filling in.
Now, is this struggle something new? You know, everybody's aging. And as we age, we find that we are losing our ability to bring to mind the words that we want to bring to mind. And so people can become frustrated at that. And then they turn to the person who is their closest and dearest. Hey, don't you see me drowning here? Aren't you going to help me? And that creates that issue. But it's something that should be dealt with in a conversation.
Okay.
And it can clarify a lot. Yes.
Okay, good.
Okay, Paul, you had a comment? Okay, I'm skipping over Paul. Let's move on to the next person. Who is the other person who wanted to say something?
I think that might be me, Doctor.
Okay, go right ahead.
So I'm wondering, Doctor, and I'd really love for you to finish the presentation. But I'm just wondering, they say that with the advent of the mobile phone, it's meant to improve our communications. And I wanted to piggyback on what Errol asked earlier. I'm wondering if with the trauma that we went through 3-4 years ago with COVID and the dependence or the shift towards using technology to communicate, if it has affected our communication level in any way at all.
Oh, definitely. There is less. In fact, we see it more with young people. You will see a group of young people in a room and it's silence. And people in the room, or everybody in the room is on their phones. They are talking to each other, but only using their phones, which I think is the weirdest thing, because I think, why not speak? But it is their style now. And they really struggle with having conversations. I was talking to a young lady about that, and she says she's dating, she started dating, and she says, these guys cannot talk to me. Like, all they do is text me. Says, some of them, I don't know what they sound like. They don't say anything. I find that stunning.
Sister Judith.
Yes.
I'll give you one better. I was in church today. We had communion.
Yes, we did too.
And I watched a woman who was on her iPad online in church watching the communion service. Yeah, that's where we've gone.
Yes, it's strange to me. I'm not there yet. Somebody else had a hand raise, and then I want to continue.
I I was responding to you, but I think Kenny, you gotta blame Kenny for that. He mute me.
Oh boy, Kenny.
Anyway, yeah, this is something that always bother me is that, people who like to answer a question with a question. What to think about that? You ask a question and they ask back a question, why? So
that is called Socratic learning. And so it's not appropriate in regular conversations. You can answer a question and then ask another question, but try not to answer a question with a question. It appears, well, it is perceived by the other person as very confrontational. It's like, what, you can't answer me the question? Now you're attacking me with another question. So it's not the way. So you can say to the person who's doing this, could you please just answer my question before I address your question?
All right.
And that way you've broken the cycle, because it can, and some people it's a habit. I know some psychologists who, they always answer a question with a question, even when they're not in therapy. And, it's like, whoa, what's going on here? Why are you trying to, do this to me? So it's a problematic thing. It's not the best habit to have. Yes. Was there another person who wanted to say something?
What I would say, go ahead with the rest of your presentation. You guys go ahead and raise your hands. Let her go another 4, 5, 6 minutes, because she has certain slides to get through.
Yeah. I don't even know what slide number I'm on, because apparently since I merged 2 presentations together, I don't have the numbers on everything. So bear with me.
Listen to me carefully. Just listen to me
Active
carefully.
listening slide.
Listen to me carefully.
Yes.
Go ahead and jog behind it.
Okay, Ray,
And if
can
you
you
have
mute yourself? Thank you. Okay. One last bit of advice for listening. Don't offer advice, especially to a woman, unless you're specifically asked to give advice. This is hard for men, because if a woman comes and complains about a situation at work, you're like, well, why don't you do this, this, and this? It seems obvious they're coming to you for advice. But no, often she's coming to you just to vent. It's hard for guys to do that, because when you offer unwanted advice, communication ends. She gets upset, things are over. Friends talking, your hand is raised. I'm not sure if you want to say something, so
sorry, doctor, go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm Lloyd. I'm sorry.
Okay. So
Judith, does that include being in a relationship too, in a marriage?
Yes, in a marriage, yes.
Oh my goodness.
In a marriage.
Whoa,
in a marriage.
I'm in big trouble.
Because there's some people, some couples where there is that, I'm coming to you for advice. You need to give me advice. But there's other people who just say, I just need to tell you what happened. I just need to get this off my chest, and then I'm going to feel better. You need to know who you have as your spouse. Number 1 or number 2. If a person is looking for advice, sure. If they're not looking for advice, don't give it. Okay, easy way to get out of this hole is say, well, do you want my advice? Ask. And she'll say, no, I just want you to listen. Okay. Then you're off the hook, you can listen. But that's where the communication comes in. Now, I want to talk about the third phase. Remember, we talked about first phase was body language. Second phase is active listening. Third phase is how to be a more effective communicator, a speaker. Now, for people who are shy and silent, they just need to do it. Just like the Nike ad is, just do it. You have to start to speak up. Because remember, people can't read your mind. And so if you don't communicate, a person does not know what you're thinking. And they make assumptions that are often wrong. So, I know there's this myth about the strong, silent type, and the guys don't say anything. Hey, you didn't marry a rock, you married a man. You know, men have voices, they can communicate. And so getting that out is a good start. Now, try to use I statements. Now, this is an interesting concept because I don't think we learned this early on. You want to share your views and you want to allow others to disagree with what you are saying. So for instance, if you say, well, fried chicken tastes lousy, what does that really mean? It means I don't like fried chicken, which is true. You know, so then I can share my view of what I don't like, and I can allow other people to disagree with me on that. So for instance, I might say, I feel cold because I'm in this room, instead of this room is too cold, because if I were to talk to the person next to me, they say, no, I'm pretty comfortable. So it doesn't mean that the room is too cold. It means that I feel cold. So what you want to do is you want to own your point of view. You want to share your point of view and not make pronouncements about your viewpoint that make it seem like it is, you know, a commandment, that is the law. No, it is your point of view. And then this is something that's men, you know, I push back on this with me all the time. I said, you should share how you feel. And guys are like, oh, I learned a long time ago, we don't share feelings. It's like, okay, bear with me. So if you say to the person that, you know, is your significant other, you aren't doing your share of the work around here, that person's going to get upset with you. If you say, I feel overwhelmed, it's how you feel. She can't be upset about you feeling overwhelmed because it's how you feel. You see? Or you aren't giving me enough attention. Oh, yeah? What do you mean by that? If you say, I feel lonely. Oh, well, this is how you feel. So I can't argue with how somebody feels. Their emotion is their emotion. And I now have a different point of view towards that presentation of, you know, whatever they're saying. So Ray, you have your hand raised. Go right ahead.
Happy Sabbath to you and everyone on the call. So my question to you is, what audience are you speaking to on this call?
Men.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but the age group, because I think what you're saying affects different age groups, because I've been with my wife 37 years.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a different dynamics to what you're saying. And I think if your audience was a young audience, young marriages, I think it would, I think that the effectiveness would be greater as they navigate through their marriage.
So you're saying you're old school and you've been in this marriage and you have your roles pretty much laid out. And now it is interesting because let me tell you, I work with a lot of men lately. I would say in the last maybe 3 years, a lot more men than I used to before. I remember this one man who said, I know something is not right. I know things are not going well. We've been married for a while, and I could see us going apart. And I really want to save this. I want to save our marriage. My wife doesn't want to go to therapy. I want you to help me. And I said, I can do it.
Okay.
Because if I change you, I change the way your wife responds to you. Do you see? So it doesn't matter the age. It's you, if you're always doing this, you know, what does it say is the definition of insanity, doing the same thing and expecting a different result. If you change what you're doing, you're going to get a different result.
Right.
Because humans interact with people based on how they interact with them.
Yeah, I'm coming from a standpoint of it, of young folks, younger, navigating through their marriage, early parts, figuring each other out. Only been a couple years in the marriage. Me longer, or anyone else on this call longer, you've navigated and you kind of establish your place in the marriage, just like them. So the main part now is communication. The main part is how are you communicating? Right. And then what happens?
Share.
Yeah. So, but then what happens when children get involved. You kind of navigate through the children.
Yes. And then
And
what
so-
happens when the children go off to college?
Yeah, then you got to rediscover each other.
If you're lucky.
Right. So I told a couple that was new in their marriage, I said, don't get a king size bed.
Really?
Yeah, I said,
What
because
size did you recommend?
I said, get a twin, not a twin, a queen, where you could be touching each other in the bed.
Mm-hmm.
Once I got a king size bed, I don't even know if my wife gets in the bed or comes out. Because you got your side, she got her side.
Yeah.
And it's so big, there's no affection or whatever. So you know the rule that when you get into a little argument or something, you play footsies. So if your foot touches her foot and she leaves it, that means there's a makeup session there.
You're forgiven. So yeah, you got to
Forgiven, right?
Yes.
But if she moves her foot away or I move my foot away, the argument's still going to go on. So that's why I said get a smaller bed in the beginning.
Okay, that's those are tips for another one. We're talking just about the speaking today, but I hear you.
Right.
Now this is an interesting concept as well, to speak out of personal experience. A lot of times when we speak in generalities, and we speak in things that can come across as being accusatory. So why can't you ever help me out with stuff? Instead of, well, I had trouble picking up my prescription today. So there was something that happened today that drove this conversation. And sometimes if we think about what is the actual thing that happened, this is what I need to talk about, not saying this is what is the problem in general, because it may not be the problem in general. And then here is my favorite specific comment. We like to tell our spouses these wonderful statements. Oh, you are wonderful. You're amazing. Whatever. What does that mean? It means not much. But if you're more specific, you can get a lot out of that comment. So for instance, if you're sitting with your wife in the moonlight and you say, as you sit there with the moonlight hitting your face, I think you're very beautiful. You're going to get a lot more than telling her, oh, you're wonderful. Do you see? Being specific. I'm telling this to you guys. This is my Christmas present early for all of you men. Be specific and share what you have to say with her with words. Women, I always say, well, men are the ones who are into touch. Men like touch. Women like touch as well. But it's not sexual touch. It's affectionate touch. So putting your hand on her shoulders or hugging her or just sitting next to her, a woman likes that. A man might think, oh, now that she sat next to me, oh, she's interested in, more. Well, she may not be. She may just want to just be close to you. And so it's getting those thoughts to match one another. But that's a whole other conversation. Now, I want to talk about compliments, because I think if you're in a relationship, you should be able to give compliments the right way. And nobody ever teaches people how to give compliments. In fact, there are people who are known in therapy as being unable to give or receive compliments. So that's a whole other conversation. So when you're giving a compliment to someone, you should state it as an I statement. So I really like that outfit, or instead of that's a nice outfit. Well, you're making a pronouncement again, but you want to own your compliment. You want to be specific. You want to pick out, I really like the way that dress brings out the color of your eyes, or whatever it might be. You make a specific statement. You pick up some attributes or actions for the compliment to make it more genuine. And that's what you'd want to do. So if somebody's done something for you, I appreciate that you gave me the opportunity to go first. That was really kind of you, And now for the flip side, accepting compliments. So many people equate accepting a compliment, not accepting a compliment, with being humble. That is not what being humble is. You want to accept a compliment that is given to you. You don't want to turn it down. You don't want to, find a way to negate it. You don't want to turn them around. You simply want to say thank you. That's it. Even if you disagree with the content of the compliment, you want to appreciate the fact that that person is complimenting you. So if I say to Ray, Ray, I really like that shirt. It's my favorite color, and I think red looks good on you. That's better than me saying, then Ray saying to me, and he says, thank you. Or he could say, well, this old thing, I've had it for years. Well, now you've insulted me because I just complimented you on it. And then you turn around and you talk about how I don't have taste. Or people say, oh, it's the only thing that was clean or whatever it is. We find a way to just negate the compliment. We need to be careful about that, because I was speaking to a lady the other day, and she said, my best friend says she won't compliment me anymore. And I was like, what do you mean? And she said, every time she compliments me, I turn it down, and she feels like she's always getting slapped in the face, and she doesn't want to compliment me anymore. And I was like, well, that's exactly what I'm talking about here. So we want to say thank you, or I appreciate it. You can appreciate the compliment without really buying into what the person is saying. It's just a validation kind of a thing. So there's a hand up from Kenny. Okay, Kenny, the floor is yours.
So just a question on the compliment. So not being able to take a compliment, is it showing some sort of insecurity on my part? Or because you're trying to balance, you want to be humble and accepting a compliment, but you don't want to go too overboard either. I mean, what are you saying?
Okay.
Maybe I am insecure and I just don't know how to accept a compliment.
People who can't accept a compliment, it can be various reasons, but often it's tied into this idea of, well, humble people don't accept compliments, but that's not true. If somebody has taken the time and effort to compliment you, you simply say thank you. Even if you don't believe it, if I say, Kenny, I really like those glasses, you say thank you. And you might say, these glasses, I don't really like them, but that's your business. But it has nothing to do with my complimenting you. So the thank you is not for you. The thank you is for the person giving you the compliment. What you think about the compliment's parts is immaterial to responding to the compliment with simply thank you or appreciate it.
It's simply really being a matter of being gracious.
It is a matter of being gracious. And so many people have tied that into a lack of, oh, well, if somebody compliments you, you need to, to negate it because then you're not being humble. But that's not being humble.
Well, Judith, I think it even goes beyond that too.
Yes.
You may not agree with the compliment. You may not believe the compliment. You may think the person may have an ulterior motive.
Yes.
But to be emotionally intelligent, I'm just dealing with what Ken said. You simply say thanks and you move on.
Mm-hmm.
But to ignore it is almost tantamount to ignoring the person, which can almost seem to be rude.
Yes, and it is insulting, because if I complimented you and then you negate it, you're basically saying I have no taste.
Or worse, I'm saying you're a liar, which is not what you want. That's not what you want to be communicating.
Or you're telling the person that they're lying. Exactly. Yeah. Paul, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I kind of want to piggyback a little based upon when Ray first came on. Looking at a research, it said that baby boomers who born between 1946 and 1964 are divorcing more than any other generation.
Really?
Yeah. And so I think everybody needs to hear what you're saying right now. It doesn't matter whether you're young or whether you're old, because, I also learned that when people get older, they tend to go into sleep in the separate room.
Mm.
Different
Yes.
reasons.
Yeah. Oh, he snores. I can't sleep with him.
Yeah.
Or whatever it might be. But he's been snoring all the time. It's not like a new thing.
Right.
Yes. Okay. Was there another person who had their hands raised?
Yes, it looked like Wilfred hand is up.
Wilfred?
Dr. J.
Yes.
Sometimes this sounds so complex.
Really?
even when you're complimenting somebody, well, if you're complimenting your wife, it's a different thing than you're complimenting somebody else. So for example, it's okay to say, I like your dress, but it's not okay to say, I like how that dress fits you.
So you're getting into leaving your spouse and going into public compliments. Here's my thought about public compliments.
Yeah.
Public compliments compliment a person's actions, not their attire. Public compliments. So somebody did a good speech. You say, I really liked your speech today. Or I really liked your song or something like that. Compliment their actions, but don't compliment their appearance for public people outside of your family. Now, I get that. I mean, people compliment me, you know, and I'm okay with it, but not everybody is. Excuse me.
Yeah, Dr. Judy. I wouldn't say a scare, but I really got concerned a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna say something here, that I got 4 women in my life that I communicate to on a really regular basis. There's my wife, and there are 4 daughters. Now, some of you might say, I only know you have 3 daughters, but I have an adoptive daughter. And it seems like quite a bit of navigation to communicate with the woman in my life.
Yes, women can be complicated.
Yeah, it's quite
Amen.
quite a bit of navigation.
Yes, and, but you know, if you started you can compliment them. Like, you know, I remember giving this as an assignment to a husband who came to me for therapy. I was like, this week you need to give your wife a genuine compliment. Not like, oh, honey, you're wonderful. No, a genuine compliment about something with a specific, you know, with facts to hold, you know, to hold it up. You know, if you say, I really like your dress, then why do you really like that dress? You have to say why. So you have to give more than just, you know, the cursory things. So it was a challenge.
So I was saying that, you know, something really caught my attention the other day, and scared me. To if I should be honest, it scared me, because a few weeks ago, right at the end of July, I heard about a couple. The gentleman is 103 years old, and his wife 98 years old.
Wow, good for him.
He had filed for divorce.
Really?
From his wife. If you haven't heard it, I don't know where you are.
I haven't heard it.
Lenny probably heard it.
But you know, we were out of the country, so it's possible.
Yeah. But that really scared me. You know, that at 103 years old, a retired pastor of our church, after a marriage of 66 years to his wife of 98 years old, could not find. I don't know what was the breakdown there.
Yeah. I haven't heard about this one, but you know, we don't know what it is. You know,
but it led me to start questioning myself about my own relationship with my wife, and what I could be doing even from now on, after 50 years of marriage, what I can be doing from now on to improve the communication and the relationship between myself and my wife.
Well, this is a good first step. You know, listening to situations, you know, presentations like this, and think about things that we often take for granted. And what happens a lot in, you know, relationships that are long-standing. Len and I have been married 42 years. You know, we've known each other together much longer than we've ever known each other, not known each other, you know. I met him when I was 17, you know, so And we didn't marry when I was 17, but you know, that's when I met him. And so it's like, when you think about it, we all grow and change over time. The key is to grow and change together and not to grow and change apart. And that requires a lot of communication. And often, especially once kids come into the play, the conversation is all about the children. In fact, there was a study that was done, when I was teaching at the university, and I brought it into class and we talked about it, that the conversation between a when they had children was about 6 minutes a week that was not about the children. 6 minutes in a week. And that was what was keeping the marriage alive, really, 6 minutes in a week. So yes, we have to work on doing more of that. Let's see, Kenny, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, it's just a comment. So these communication skills that you're teaching us, it seems like, just like you said, it has to be dynamic and not static. Because Ray brought up a good point. Ashley had commented, and Wilbert, that you have stages, and you brought it up too. Stages when you're a teenager, stages when you're courting, stages when you're married and you have children, stages when you're an empty nester, stages when you have grandchildren. So it's dynamic. And then you had to add the variables of people going through things, personality differences, all these. So it's complicated, Judith. It's really complicated.
Complicated. But you know, the good thing is that if you want to change, you can change, and your relationship can get better. I remember somebody said to me some years ago, says, I'm willing to change, but I don't think my spouse is willing to change. And I was like, okay, are you willing to change even if they don't change? Yes. And it was almost like a competition, and I said, okay, hold up a second. I want to teach you to put yourself in that person's shoes, because we seldom do that. We seldom think about, how could my spouse be looking at this situation? We don't do that. We look at it from our lenses and we're like, this is obviously the right way. Why can't they get on board? Instead of, why are they looking at it differently? What is their point of view? Remember, they didn't grow up with you. They didn't have your background. So they will look at the world differently than you do. And you have to respect that. And so when you do that, when you respect that difference, then you're able to say, oh, wow, I never thought of it from that point of view. You give them grace. And that's of better communication. Ray, you had your hand up?
Yes. Okay, so I've heard some accents on this call. So I think one of the dynamics too is cultural differences.
Yes.
So how you communicate in regard to that. But I'll tell you something, I have a better relationship with my wife now than I did when we went with our children. The reason being, because you're raising your children, there's different things going on. So when I said I'm going to play golf, there was conflict there. Well, the girls got to do this or go that, and I'm tired. Why don't you cook? And, there was conflict. Now the kids are grown up, out of the house, graduated from college, got their own place, their careers. Now, if I say I'm going to play golf, okay, when you'll be back, okay, I'll have dinner ready. Well, it's a difference now.
Yes.
And vice versa with what my wife wants to do. There's a difference, Exactly. So sometimes that's why I said, don't get a king size bed early in your marriage.
Yeah.
Because you won't be able to play footsies. So but like I said,
I'm hoping the guys are listening to you. I was trying to think of what was our first bed. I think we had a full size bed when we first got married. So
there's more intimacy when you're touching, even if you're just touching the shoulders.
I get you.
22 years in, it's way late.
22 years. And listen, there are people who can't sleep with another person touching them. So you have to think about their personal differences. A person who can't sleep with another person touching them and then you want to be all over that person's not going to get any sleep. And let me tell you, there's nothing worse than a person not getting any sleep. Talk about hangry. Well, sleep deprived is a whole other beast. And so you don't want to be in that situation either. So we have to learn to accommodate each other's differences. Okay. So I'm looking at the time. And I think I could be able to maybe get through this part next. I want to talk a little bit about assertiveness. The issue that we have with assertiveness is a lot of people cross the line from assertiveness to aggression. So assertiveness, it has two forms. The first one is asking somebody else to make a change in order to make you feel better. Listen to that. You're asking somebody else to change their behavior so that you feel better. The second way that you can be assertive is to say no to something that you're being asked to do because that action will cause you to feel more negative emotions. And you're like, I don't want to have more negative emotions. But either form, you are eliciting the help or the cooperation of another person. So if you attack the person or you demand something, you're not eliciting help or cooperation. So right away, you have failed at being assertive. And then if you're failing at being assertive, you're falling into aggression. So it's important to understand that concept. So I want to teach you two, maybe three types of how to be assertive. So this,
Judith.
yes.
So is this kind of in reference to also our talking to our young people young children who maybe adults and
yes, it applies to everyone. And I think what we do when you want somebody to do something, you say, stop doing this or do this, but we don't provide context. So assertiveness provides some context. Now, basic assertiveness is you're asking them to do something that you want because of how they feel about you. So it would mean a lot to me if you would take out the trash. Okay, Daddy, I'll take out the trash because it's going to mean a lot to you. You see? Because of the relationship they have with you, they're willing to do something just because you ask. But that doesn't always work. In fact, let me tell you the truth. It seldom works. So we need to go on to the deluxe model. Okay? So in the deluxe model of asking for somebody to change their behavior to benefit you, you need to be very lawyerly. The lawyers on the call will appreciate this. You need to describe objective, observable, verifiable facts of the situation, not putting in any emotional baggage there. So here's an example. You're talking with your friend over the phone about something for you to do next weekend. You suggest going to a park to take a walk, and your friend said, well, that's a stupid idea. That's the objective facts. You're not adding in any of your emotions. You're not adding in any extraneous things. Well, other people never say this. No. It's just the facts. Okay. That's step one. We give the facts. Step two, you share the feelings that this engenders in you. Okay. I felt hurt. If it's a close friend, I felt hurt when you called my idea stupid, or I felt put down, or I felt angry, or whatever it is. You know how you felt, so you share how you felt, okay? So you've given the facts, then you say, this is how it made me feel. That's step two, how it made you feel. Step three, request a specific change on their behalf. So it's fine to say you don't want to go to the park, but please don't use words like stupid to describe my suggestion. So you're just telling the person, hey, I object to being called stupid. I object to my ideas being called stupid. Find another way to say what you need to say without insulting me. Okay? So that's the specific change. That is what we call, assertiveness training. It's a three-step. One, state the facts. Two, state how it makes you feel. Three, ask them to change their behavior. This works best with somebody that you have some relationship with. If you don't have a relationship with the person, you don't have to share your feelings. You might say, these are the facts. You know, there's somebody who's, you know, blocking you in. And, you know, hey, you know, this is where my property ends. Your car is over the line. Please move your car. You didn't have to share the fact that this made you angry. Your tone of voice would probably share that information.
But Dr. McCullough, let me
yes.
just say this. The analogy that you gave before regarding taking out the trash.
Yes.
You ask a child, your teenager, to take out the trash. That's based on authority.
Yes.
You have authority. But the wife asks you to take it out. I think that's more based on love, and the tone of that asking
is what makes a difference.
What
so
makes the difference?
If your wife says to you, honey, it would feel a lot, it would mean a lot to me if you would just take out the trash for me today.
Yeah, so then you can move on that. Yeah.
You're going to be on that, you know, right away. Now your kid, you're not going to, it's going to mean a lot to me if you would do this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it might be a different situation with the kid. You might say, you know, because you've already had a discussion about chores. So you will say, you know, this has been the second day that I have told you to take out the trash, and the trash is still not. So those are the facts. You can say, you might want to say, this is very frustrating. I feel disrespected. However you feel, you feel. So this is your last warning to take out the trash. Now, let's get to step 4. Step 4 is giving specific consequences if the change does not happen. Here's where parents get into trouble. If you've ever been driving in a car with kids and parents, kids are in the backseat fighting, and the parents are like, you guys better stop this or I'm going to put you out of the car. The kids keep fighting. Why? The parents are not going to put them out of the car. I have only known of one parent who literally stopped the car and put the children out. One. Went around the block and came back and picked up the kids. The kids were freaked. The backseat was silent, but I was like, what if, you know, the police had seen you? I mean, there was a whole other thing going on there. There was a whole other situation. So when you want to specify a consequence, it must be something that you are prepared to deliver. So if this person is constantly insulting you, you might say something like, our friendship is important to me. However, I can't spend time with you if you continue to speak to me in a negative way. So your consequence is, I'm not going to spend time with you. That's within your right. And if you can do it, that's a consequence you can lay down. For a child, you might say, you know, if you don't take out the trash on time, I'm taking your phone, or I'm taking your Game Boy, or whatever it might be. You give a consequence, and you have to be willing to take the consequence, put it into action, or else you have set up a precedent for your child to be disrespectful to you from now on. Why? You have now turned into an intermittent reinforcer, which means you apply sometimes the rules and sometimes not. That means that behavior is likely to be more long-standing. Think about fishing. You go out fishing today, you catch a fish. You go out tomorrow, you might not catch anything. But you are not going to stop fishing because, you know, if I go out the next day, I might catch 3. So it's random and it's not predictable. And that behavior is more likely to continue. Same thing with gambling. That's why gambling is so hard to break. So when you go to the grocery store with a child, and that child sees the candy at the register and they want a candy and they throw themselves on the floor and they scream, and you give that child a candy, the next time that child comes to the store, that child will do the same thing. And if you say no, the child will likely not stop the behavior because they know that if they scream, you're going to give in. And so you have now generated that habit. So you reinforce it sometime, you reinforce it another time, that behavior will continue. Yes.
Can you hear me? I'm sorry.
I can hear you. Go ahead.
I'm visually impaired.
Go right ahead. Go right ahead.
Well, I understand where you're coming from, but with my mother and the way I was raised, no.
Yes, I mean, you're talking old school raising versus new school raising?
Yes, I am.
Well, okay. So if you
If
think
my
about
mom
that,
said something,
you know how many parents today are struggling with that?
Yeah.
They're not using old school raising anymore.
Oh.
You know, as a person who went through old school raising, I can tell you, if I was ever punished, I would say, why did my parents punish me? They could have just talked to me. I have a brain. This is when I was like 9 years old.
Well,
I have a brain. I mean, no, I would never have said this to my parents. That didn't mean I didn't think it. They could have spoken to me.
Well, let me say this. Like I say, if you call it old school, it was old school.
Mm-hmm.
But you learned that you didn't come in on grown folks' conversation. You didn't listen to grown folks. You leave the room. You didn't drop your head. You just didn't do that, and they wouldn't allow it. You know. Yeah. And I'm not saying I never got a whooping I didn't deserve. You know, as a child, my mama didn't whoop me for nothing. So if I did something, I got whooped for what I did wrong.
I was punished when my siblings did wrong stuff.
Yeah, and
I was the oldest.
Yeah, then raising my children, I never whooped my children.
Yeah, me neither.
I never gave them one whooping because they listened the first time. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I never went through that.
All right. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. I want to touch on one. Well, does anybody have any comment on assertiveness? This idea of using this technique. It's very challenging for people who are not used to doing it, but actually it works really well. If you're prepared to do all the steps. And what happens with people is they start off with step one and say, well, you didn't do this and you didn't do that and you didn't do the other. As soon as you start off with you, the person perceives it as an attack and they put up their defenses. So you want to state the facts in an objective way that doesn't seem accusatory. Just like, the garbage was not taken out yesterday, it wasn't taken out the day before, despite me asking that it be taken out. Those are the facts. So it's when you talk about things in a factual way, people are more willing to listen. That's what I'm trying to say with that. Wilpert, you have your hand up.
Yeah, Dr. Judy.
Yes.
You talk about assertiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you do when you see assertiveness is morphing into aggressiveness?
Okay, so this is the part I took out of this presentation because I was like, there's no way I could get all of this. And I'm not even going to get through everything in here as it is, so bear with me. Assertiveness and aggressiveness are not the same. About assertiveness, you're looking at the rights of yourself and the rights of the other person. You're respecting both. In aggressive behavior, you are only looking at your rights. You don't care about the rights of the other person. So a person who is aggressive gets their way because they're a bully. An assertive person is looking for cooperation. So it's different. It has a different outcome. It has a different intention. And so if somebody is being aggressive and you're the recipient of it, you use these same steps and you say, well, X, Y, and Z just happened. This is how I feel. I would like if you would do this instead. And your tone of voice, you cannot be assertive when you're out of control. So if you need time to cool down, if you need time to take a breath or pull yourself together, do it. Because if you lash out at the other person because that person lashed out at you, you are engaging in aggressive behavior, and that's not assertiveness.
Okay, let me just say this then. Assertiveness also is based on your environment. If you're assertive at work, it's deemed different where someone could feel threatened and go to HR. If you're assertive at home, it's different also. So it's a lot to navigate through.
If you're assertive at work, somebody shouldn't feel threatened because you're stating the facts and you're asking them to not do something.
Yeah, but at the same time, I get that. But nowadays, like the gentleman spoke, he's old school, and that's the way I grew up also. So you assertive with these kids today, oh, you know what? I'm going to call that number, HCS, whatever it is. They're going to call that number and report
call
you
the cops and report you, DCF.
Right. So these kids have that. It's tough raising kids today.
Oh, it is.
These kids have what we never had, cell phone. They have social media. They're more interactive with those things, whereas we went out and played. We played.
It is a different world.
Yeah.
But this strategy could still work, and I know it works because I've done it numerous times, and so I think sometimes there's a word for it in psychology, but it's basically it is if we go too close to a habit, the habit captures us and we engage in it. So if we're trying to learn a new habit, it takes more effort, it takes more work, and we often, if somebody irritates you and you're used to cursing, somebody irritates you, your default is going to be to curse because that's your habit. Now, if you change to say, I'm not doing that anymore, it requires resistance on your part to change from cursing because that was your old habit. So you have to change and form a new habit. So this is like changing to form a new habit. Oh, let me try to get some more people on the line here. Wilpert, you had your hands raised.
Yeah, let me lower my hand.
All right, go ahead. Oh, you're finished?
Yeah, I was the one who asked about when assertiveness morphs into.
Okay. So I want to say a couple more things. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through everything. I have to stop and we have to do a part 2. What can I say? Okay, I wanted to talk about saying no. This is a challenge for many people. I know it's a challenge for me. I'm confessing, because somebody asked me to do something. My default is yes. But sometimes it is important for us to deflect unwanted demands of others. We need to learn to say no, or we can be overwhelmed. And my husband would say, Judy, why don't you say no? Why are you in 4, ministries? Why are you doing 4 presentations in the next 2 weeks? Which I am doing, by the way. It's something that takes practice. And here's the key. I'm telling you the key. You have to say no, sorry, I can't do it, without offering excuses. Because if you offer excuses, well, I have to do this, they say, well, I can help you with that so you can still do it. So people will find a way to use your excuses to rope you into doing the thing that you're trying to get out of. So just be mindful of that. And I want to share this with you guys. We talked about assertiveness, but I have to tell you this, not every situation is appropriate to be assertive. Okay? So remember this phrase, I am worth it. Is this situation important to you? Is what you're thinking worth your attention? If the answer is yes, then you move on to being assertive. If your answer is no, you take actions to just change the way you think about the situation and let it go. if you're appropriate. Okay, it's important to you and it's also appropriate. Is what I'm thinking or feeling appropriate to the facts of the situation? Yes, we continue on the path to assertiveness. 3, is the situation changeable in ways that will reduce my negative thoughts and feelings? Let me give you an example. You're at the grocery store. You have one item. You go into that 10 items or less lane. The person in a line in front of you, who is one person removed from getting into the register, has, I don't know, 15 items. And you have one item and you're in a rush. Is that important to you? You say yes. Is what you're thinking and feeling appropriate? You say yes. Is it modifiable? Yes, I can tell this person, hey, you're in the wrong line. I can do that, right? But here is, I think, the most important part, worth it. Will taking action result in a net gain when you balance the needs of yourself and the other person? Because we care about people in our environment, right? If your answer is yes, then you say, excuse me, sir, but I think you're in the wrong line. This is a 10 item only line. And they'll be like, oh, sorry. And they move most times. But if that person is muttering to himself and looking a little deranged, dare I say, you might say, it's not worth it to me to get into any altercation with this person because they're not all the way here. So I'm going to leave them alone and I'm just going to let it be. So you have to answer the question, important, appropriate, modifiable, and worth it. If your answer is yes, then become assertive. If your answer to any of these is no, then change the way you think and let it go. Any comments, guys?
I have lots of comments. Okay, so if I've had scenarios where I've had one item on a line and they have a bunch of stuff and the person turns and sees me with the one item and let me go ahead of them.
True.
I've had the other way where I've had lots of items and I see them with one item and I let them go ahead.
Right.
I have had where I had one item and I said, do you mind if I go ahead? And they said, no. I left it alone. But I've come to learn that in my retirement, I'm not in no rush anymore. So if I got one item, they got 100, I take my time. Yeah, so I just got a different mindset with that.
Exactly. You have decided against it. So you have now changed the way you think about the situation. Let that, negative emotion go. So
right.
You're a perfect example of what I was saying. Okay, Kenny, you're up.
So the assertive training, thank you very much. You're doing excellent, Judith. Really, we do need a part 2. We need to recover from part 1. So the problem is
there's so much I didn't get to. So.
Oh my goodness! So we definitely need a part 2 next year. So, but this, Judith, we men don't like sharing our feelings.
True.
That's number 3 on the assertive training. How do we improve on learning to? Because sharing your feelings, you think you're showing a weakness. You're being too transparent. So how do you work through that with respect to the assertive training?
So I say be more generic instead of more specific. So for instance, say I feel frustrated, but you might also feel angry. But you know what? I think I'm just going to go with frustrated. You don't have to drop all the bombs. You might say, if I say, this frustrates me to my wife, she might be more willing to listen to me than if I say, this makes me angry. So it does require you to know the party to whom you are speaking and to choose language that would be most receptive to that person. But the thing is, if you're in a relationship with that person, you already know that. It's just a matter of just turning on the computer and just thinking about it for a little bit, and you can do it. Men have been taught not to share emotions. Sharing emotions is weakness. But men are learning that when they share emotions, especially with women, they actually get a more positive result. And so men are starting to rethink that whole business of, I need to be the strong, silent type, because they're getting a benefit. That is what they really want. Oh, Carlo, the floor is yours.
Let me see how I can word this without being too controversial.
Take your time, brother.
I have formed a different view, where the result of the consequence of showing emotion is many men, I believe, will share their emotions with their significant other, but form the view that it is not in their best interest to do so after that initial attempt or initial instance, because in a number of instances, I won't say in most instances, I'll say in a number of instances, that display of emotion or confidence or giving confidential information ends up being used against him.
Okay. So I have to say this. If your relationship is rocky and it is something where your significant other is looking for ammunition, you don't have to provide the ammunition. You see what I'm saying? But if it's a case where there is a genuine lack of connection and understanding and communication, then, you know, it is something to try. I say you are always, in my opinion, the best person to decide what is going to work for you, because it's your life. I'm not living your life. You are, you know? And I am a firm believer in experiments. I say, try something and see what happens. I live my life as a giant experiment. And I found that, you know, once burned, twice shy, yes. Yeah. But sometimes people surprise you. And sometimes it is what you share. Like I said, sharing anger versus sharing frustration or something along those lines can make a difference in how it is perceived on the receiving end. So, but it's still your choice. You know, if you choose to try something, when I tell people about this whole idea of being assertive, I preface it by saying to people, I learned something that I want to use, and I'm going to tell you about it, and I want us to try it. Okay, so an experiment then. Yes. And then you want to elicit the other person on your side. That sounds almost like putting into or applying the Jamaican saying of text, sleep, mark, death to your relationship then. Well, I don't know that expression, so I'm not going to mess with it. In other words, so sleep is like death. Yes. So you take the sleep, or what would be the equivalent of the sleep, which would be the response to the experiment or the consequence of the experiment. And you mark that as what death would be like, which would be the rest of the relationship. And that's not necessarily so, because remember, you are changing, and as you change, the person changes in response to you. It's not the very first time that you do something the person changes. For instance, you know, there was a couple, they were on rocky ground. The wife used to, in the early years of marriage, make breakfast for the husband. But when things started getting shaky, you make your own, I make my own. You know, we're ships in the night, basically, right? Started implementing some of these things. And one day, he gets up in the morning and she has made him breakfast. Now, why would she do that? She did that in response to how he had changed.
Oh.
Do you
The
see?
cynic in me would say check levels of arsenic.
Can I say, well, I don't have all the answers, but I think when you share intimate things about your life, I think that based on longevity in the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm dating someone and it's a year, I'm not going to say when I was a kid, I used to wet the bed. Whereas the length of time I've been with my wife, we shared intimate things, and I don't use what she tells me against me.
Right.
Against her. Or
Yes.
what I tell her, she uses it against me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more like you know, like I think you get a lot of good results with pillow talk.
Yeah. And it's you know what's good about pillow talk? It's in the dark and you're not seeing the other person. And in the darkness, people are more likely to share intimate things because it's not as intense as sitting face to face with another person with the lights on. Yes.
Right.
I see our time as, oh my goodness, guys. We are
never enough time.
Wilpart, you know, you're look like you're gonna be the last. You have the last comment.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, thank you. You know, people like myself, you know, you have been in a relationship for so many years, for decades.
Yes.
You know the person from you're young and know that you're approaching dinosauric age. You're still that relationship, you know, and your life has been dynamic. It has been a growth period. But this person remembers you from when you were a different person.
Yes, that can happen.
Yes. And so the person is not able to appreciate the dynamic changes that has taken place, because the first person to know of the changes in your life is you.
Right.
And this other person is maybe not able to appreciate.
You know, it's interesting that you say that. A lot of the men in therapy talk about that. They talk about their wives, even if they've made changes, their wives still see them as this first person. And I say, it's not necessarily so. Here's what happens. They say women have memories like elephants. Women tend to go to that thing about bringing up old things from the past.
Yeah.
And, you know, you're having a conversation about something today and they'll bring up things from the past. And that's a habit. But a habit can be broken. And so it can change.
So, you know, I'm not comfortable when a person looks at me and say, I know you. Either that I've been careless about myself, that they can say, I know you, or or they have not recognized the dynamism that has happened in my life.
Well, they may be stuck in the past and they color everything in the past. Now imagine this. Imagine you're a guy who has made big changes. You used to be a very impatient, me-centered, you know, egocentric person, and everything was around you. But you love your wife and you're like, okay, I know I need to change this. So now you're become more involved with the kids. You're making an effort to do things differently. And the one time everything is going fine, the one time you mess up, your wife says, you haven't changed at all.
Yeah.
This can be very discouraging to you. But the fact that she's not saying that on a daily basis, she already somewhere inside recognizes that you have changed. And it's taken her long.
It's stuck.
Hello?
She froze.
Yeah, she froze.
She may have gotten cut off. She'll come back. Well, you guys, we've gone a long time, so she's really been.
We need more. We need more of what's going on.
Yeah, we do.
I didn't get to do everything. So, you know.
How much longer you need?
No. The guys are eating this up, Judith.
I think I would need at least a half an hour more. And that would be too long.
Make a long story short. Okay, no. We just got them.
Pardon?
Them to their house. Depends on the rest of the men. I think we could, half an hour.
No, Ray, we will book her for another time.
No, we have to book you another time, Judith. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So you can book me another time. I will make note of where I'm stopping with this. And then I can add in the other things that I was going to talk about.
Ray, we're using the input, the knowledge that we gained this evening for Dr. McCalla.
Well, I'm
I have to say something about our relationship.
In my house, you could go for half hour.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you, Doc. I was going to ask you what it's like in your house.
Yes. So in my house, I have to say, my husband and I have been married 42 years. I think we have a better relationship now than we had, before. Our relationship, when we became empty nesters, has been progressively improving. I think we have a way better relationship now. And you can ask him, he's on there somewhere, if he would agree with that we have a better relationship now than we've had in the past.
Mm-hmm. I could agree with that with my relationship too.
Yes, I think so too.
Len, why are you so silent?
I know he hasn't asked any questions, any comments. I hope he's still on.
He was having some technical issues earlier, so I think he's watching on YouTube.
Oh, he's watching on YouTube, so he's delayed or something.
Yeah.
There he is. Oh, he was eating.
I am delayed. I don't know if you're on the same topic because I'm listening on. Yeah.
We can hear you now, Dan. We can hear you now.
We've had, I think, better COVID help us spend more time together. I think that has helped.
Yeah. So we've spent a lot more time together with COVID. We spent hours. We would walk for hours and just talk to each other. And just, back when we were dating, we would spend hours talking. But, marriage and so forth, that doesn't really happen as much, right? COVID was actually a blessing for us in that regard, where it really helped to strengthen our relationship with each other. And, you become more accepting of the other person. It's not that you turn into a clone of the other person. You have your faults, and nobody's perfect. Everybody's going to do something that's going to irritate another person. That's life. But, ask yourself, would I marry this person again? I will say, without a doubt, I would. And I think he would say the same thing, but you might have to get him delayed to respond to that.
You know what? One of the things you mentioned, you gave that example of a person changing.
Yes.
I was saved in 2005.
Okay.
So when you're in the church, you want to dot your I's and cross your T's. Mm-hmm. Your lifestyle changes, everything changes about you. So my wife, who was already in the church, was looking for those little things. It was kind of like those kind of things. Oh, you haven't changed. And, but other people see your change.
Yes.
But the one that's closest to you sometimes doesn't see your change.
Has the higher standard. She has a higher standard. And
right.
They're the last to be able to be convinced of the change.
Correct. Yes. So it takes time for your loved ones.
Yes. So I think I could finish up the rest of this. And I guess the part that I was going to talk about is like how to resolve conflict, how to fight fairly. I think a lot of couples struggle with that. And a lot of couples have things unresolved because they don't know how to fight fairly. one person's always giving in, and making the peace, and that's not really a good way to resolve conflict. So, no, that could be something we could cover, moving forward. And there were some other comments I wanted to make about families and so forth that, because if I were going to go on here, I want to talk about this just little slide right here. We have to beware of being guilty of emotional abuse to another person. If we're constantly criticizing, if we diminish their abilities, if we call names, we damage their relationship with their children or with significant others, that is emotional abuse. And it is the definition of emotional abuse by the Department of Justice. So this is not just my creation. So we want to be careful about how we speak. One thing about Len and me, and I can tell you this, I'm sure he will agree, is that we've been married 42 years. We were dating 5 years before that. And we have never called each other than our names. And so the whole idea of name calling is something that I think people really need to be mindful of, because a person can say, I forgive you, but they do not forget. And it always is in their head, this is what this person really thinks of me. And they let their true feelings come out because they were angry. And so we have to be careful about the language that we use and what we call each other. You have a name, use it. You don't need to call them the B word or whatever other word. Those names are not appropriate names to call people. And we have to be careful about using that kind of language. Okay, so Wilpert, and there's somebody else with a hand up. Are we stopping?
We're stopping.
Okay.
But you can get the hands real quick.
So Wilpert, you have a hand?
Yeah.
And somebody else has a hand.
Yeah, Everdale, my hand was up. You mentioned about conflict or anger resolving, and I think that we shouldn't even bother attempt to go there now, because that should probably take more time than we had this evening.
Yes.
Very good,
Yes.
very Doc, and observe, and we have learned a lot.
Thank you. Thank you. So I look forward to continuing this sometime in the future. And, I'm usually available. So whenever Kenny calls, I will answer.
All right. Thank you very much, Doc. Really appreciate it. We had, I think, broke some records today. We had like 18 folk or 18 different people or calls. So we just really appreciate the assertive training, saying how to say no. We're going to hit conflict resolution next time. Carla was saying how difficult that can be really in any type of relationship.
Yes.
But we just want to thank you. You really made this practical, pragmatic, and you're gonna help us, and we really appreciate it. So Lenny, go ahead and take over.
I know he's delayed, so
He's delayed, yeah.
Not sure how delayed he is.
Go ahead, Kenny, and just close off, because I think Lenny is. Go ahead, Kenny.
Yeah.
Just close off.
Thanks
Lenny,
everyone for coming.
Okay, good.
He's on.
Okay.
Go ahead, Len.
I guess we can continue this another time. Shall we bow our heads and we'll end with prayer? Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for allowing us to have another session. We're thankful for my wife and her presentation and how it will be a blessing to the families represented. Thank you for saving us and for sending your son to die for us, and allow us to have a wonderful week and reunite again next week. Amen.
That was good. Very good.
Amen. Amen.
Well, thank you all for participating. This was very interactive, and I really like that. That's probably why we couldn't get through everything, though.
This is
I
the
really
first
like
talking
that was really good.
Yeah, you pulled the best out of us, Judy.
Well, I tried. All right, until next time.
All right, everyone.
We have part two.
And Ray, welcome. Good. Thank you for your participation, Ray.
Oh,
All
you're
right,
quite
everyone.
welcome. I was glad that I was invited to listen in and to comment. So much appreciated. So what's the good thing is that I'll see Dr. McCullough next Sabbath.
That's
So
right.
So Ray,
I
just to
could
let you
ask
know,
as many questions as I want.
Ray, just to let you know, we have a men's WhatsApp group. And if you'd like to be a part of that, so this conversation continues on that WhatsApp group. It's a group of men. We're about 80 strong right now. The communication goes out every week. We communicate on that WhatsApp chat. So if you want, you can. Who invited you today?
Dr. McCullough.
Okay, you can. Dr. McCalla can send your number to me, and we can add it to the group, and you can participate. Feel free.
Okay. What do you discuss on the call?
Oh, everything. This and everything.
Spirituality, politics.
Everything. Sex, marriage. And we keep it exclusively to a men's group so that the men have that freedom to talk whatever is on their mind. So that group we don't have women participating in. It's just strictly men talking. Friends
Okay.
talking.
I'm on another men's group, but it's strictly biblical
No, this one is
conversation.
everything. This one is everything.
Okay.
From politics to
you can add me, but I won't participate in the politics. To me, it's a waste of time. You know, it don't
That's
matter.
all right.
I just trust in the Lord.
That's all right. That's all right. I'm just telling you the topics that we talk about.
Okay.
Everything and everything between.
I'll contribute to everything else.
Okay, buddy. No problem. Welcome
All right.
again.
All
Good to
right,
have
Judith, honorarium. Lenny owes you an honorarium from us. Okay.
Right.
So
Okay.
tell him he owes an honorarium and make sure it's very expensive from us. Okay.
Okay. Well, the meeting is still being live streamed, so you guys can hang up anytime.
Okay, guys.
Okay.
Have a good one.
All right.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay. Bye,
Be blessed.
everybody.
Be blessed, everyone.